Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Radio 5G. This is Michael Henry Dunn, and I am here with my co-host Nancy Hopkins to bring you all of the latest information on the growing movement to stop the rollout of the 5G technology, which so many scientists and medical experts around the world are warning us is lethal not only to human beings but to the biosphere. And good morning, Nancy. Hello there, Nancy.
Yes. I'm sorry. I accidentally unplugged my earphones.
Oh, I was just doing my
yeah, I heard that
polite, warm welcome of my co-host. So here we are.
Yes.
Anyway, there she is. That's right. I am so glad this morning of the special guest that we have on board with us, a dear friend of mine, but also just one of the most remarkable spiritual scientists on the planet, and that is Reverend Maia Kyi'Ra Nartoomid, up from the planet Earth and many places beyond. Welcome, Maia.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Michael.
You're so welcome. So it's a very exciting time that we're in, folks. There is a lot of movement, a lot of good news, and a lot of alarming news because, of course, the rollout of the 5G technology continues in many places unabated, and at the same time, there is a growing movement with hard 3D tools in hand. We're going to share with you some of those tools that are being used. There's a wonderful link we're going to share with you from the Environmental Health Trust, an article called USA City Ordinances to Limit and Control Wireless Facilities, Small Cells in Rights of Ways. This just shares with all of you what is going on in cities and towns and municipalities across the United States that are mobilizing to use effective legal tools to stop the rollout. So what today's program is about is looking at both these great 3D tools, sharing with you the good news that's coming across, and also to look at the bigger picture. And when I mean bigger picture, when I say that, I mean the really bigger picture in terms of not only planet Earth, Gaia, our Earth Mother, but also on the universal spectrum of what 5G is a symptom of in terms of consciousness, and how our own soul, dharma, and righteousness and purpose can best interact with this situation, can take divine intelligence within us and do the most effective metaphysical action, soul action, actions of love and courage that doesn't play into the dark agenda, that doesn't play into fear, that doesn't play into this notion that there is some awesome, monolithic, horrific, dark entity out there that is about to devour us. There are factions of souls in deep ignorance, is my view on it. And I can think of almost no one better qualified than Reverend Maia to share with us this perspective. We're also going to be sharing with you a perspective that Nancy Hopkins brought forward in her recent radio show in Cosmic Reality with Jamie Bates, who's a remarkable writer and seer, visionary, I would say, for lack of a better word, in terms of the same kind of perspective of the larger picture. What kind of beings would actually be capable of rolling out a technology like 5G that is causing horrific damage, that is causing miscarriages, brain tumors, brain damage to children, the loss of the biosphere. What kind of consciousness would do that deliberately and consciously? And how do we position ourselves as souls, as human beings, as people with a sense of right and wrong? So anyway, that's the spectrum of information today. And what I'd like to do first is give Maia a chance to introduce herself and share a little bit of her story with us. She has a beautiful perspective on the whole 5G reality that she'll be sharing with us also. So before we get to introducing Maia, I want to just touch base with Nancy on this overview that I've been describing to get Nancy's perspective on the show today.
Sounds like a good show. No, let's just go for it. Sounds like a good show.
All right, then. So, Maia, please just share with us some of your story and background, and if you then want to just segue right into the perspective on 5G that you'd like to share, that would be great.
Yes, thank you, Michael. Well, I'm going to make my story really short here, but I do want to include it so that you can understand where I'm coming from in all of this. In 1967, I began to communicate with ultra beings. I call them ultra beings because they're not regular extraterrestrials, but they're of a more supernal nature, but they're still beings of humanoid-like perspective. In fact, they call themselves, to me, the kindred, because they're of the same DNA background. And then they would tell me that I had a benefactor, I prefer to call him my mentor now, that I was connected to, but I wouldn't be aware of him, or he wouldn't be able to communicate with me for a while. Well, that while was about 10 years. And then he began to communicate with me, and that being identified himself as Thoth, the Thoth of Egypt and all of that. Not a god, but was called that eventually because, that's the way things usually happen. So that was in 1977, and I've been working with these beings ever since, especially Thoth now. The ultras kind of stepped aside more or less and let him take over, so to speak. It's been a very natural, communicative experience for me, and one that I'd like to talk about my mother in this picture, because since I was so young, I was 17 when this started, she was there very much for me and my light working companion until her passing in 1988. I was her only child. My father had died when I was 10, so it was just the two of us. And she actually, when they started communing with me, they occasionally communicated with her. And when I say communicated, I'm speaking about materializing in the room, materializing in her room, materializing in my room, and through mental telepathy, communicating with us. And at times, we saw them on occasion together. We were in the same room when they appeared. This was all at night, and we would have to be wakened up, and my mother was literally told to go into my room, and my physician at the time, my ultra physician, walked behind her. I saw them both coming in together. So the purpose of the ultras at that time was to bolster my health enough that I could live long enough to do all of this, and other things as well. But anyway, as things proceeded, and my mother was totally on board with all of this, obviously, we decided to contact Edgar Mitchell, who was, at the time, the Apollo 14 astronaut preparing to go to the moon. But he had spoken on television about the fact when he got back, he wanted to establish some kind of institute for parapsychology. And since that sort of thing was so rare in those days to hear about it, we thought, maybe we'll contact him, because I began, working with the Akasha, and I was bringing through really high sciences. I didn't know at the time to call it quantum physics, but basically that's what it was, and more. So when he returned from the moon, he had a whole package waiting for him that my mother had put together of my work. And he told us later, ordinarily his hand would have not gone to that package because he had tons of mail when he got out of quarantine. But he said he was just had to reach for it and open it. And when he read it, he called us. And that began, we were in San Antonio, Texas then, so that began a period of him having my mother and I drive out to Houston. He paid for us to do so and to stay in a hotel or motel there. And while he researched me or just, talked to me and see what could come of it, it was him that told me that my science was valid, but far beyond anything that the scientists were working with at the time. But remember, that was back in 1960. Well, at that time it would be 1972, 73, 74, in there somewhere. So he gave me the knowledge that I was working with something that was valid. I wasn't just, flying off the handle in my little imagination. He didn't continue to work with me after a while because, as he told me, I remember he knelt to my chair. I was only 23 at the time, I think, and my mother was sitting next to me and told me that I was, my work was very valid. He was still totally convinced of that, but that he simply could not continue to work with me because it was a lifetime pursuit. Just that alone, just working with me. And he had his, he had his program set up. He was going to be doing what became the Institute of Noetic Sciences. And I understood that, but it served a purpose, It allowed me to realize that my work, what I was receiving, was basically valid. And I say basically because we're all human beings. I don't expect that everything that I receive is going to be absolutely perfect. There's always going to be a little wobble here and there. But that my work was basically sound. After that, and very shortly after that, we contacted George Lawrence, who was the managing editor of the Ecola Institute, which engaged in nuclear radiation research, medical and agricultural, biomagnetic research, and conceptive space research for NASA, among other studies. He was also an expert oceanographer, a historian, a cartographer, and originator of the world's first laser engine, and at the time, as of 1972, the author of 46 books and articles. So we contacted him with my science, and he wrote me back and actually invited me to become a member of his newly forming organization. But he said at the time he didn't have the funding to pay me, and so he was waiting to see what would happen there. But we went back and forth a lot. With my mother and I and George, we came to know him rather well, and we even met one time in person. All this was on board and going gangbusters, and then all of a sudden, after George Lawrence told me excitedly that NASA was actually interested in his work and some other governmental agencies were interested in his work, of course, he was thinking funding and everything, Well, George disappeared. He just flat out disappeared, not only from me, but from his colleague Christopher Bird, who he had introduced me to and who was also very interested in my work. And he's the co-author of The Secret Life of Plants, and he was also a colleague of Einstein's in his younger days. But he disappeared from him as well. And when we Google him now, he apparently he died in 1994, but there's no mention of him in his work, nothing, no published works after 1974 when he disappeared, nothing. It's as if he was simply shut down. And if you were to look at his material and what he was doing, you would understand why. Anyway, I don't want to go off on that, but that was an interesting part of my life. So now, I would like to go into just understanding what I want to say here today. And I have notes here that I've put together, but I've also have in my Nessia Library and Research Project site is where I have the Akashic definitions from the Library of Thoth, as he gave it to me all these over 50 years now. I don't have it all put in there, but what I do have, and I'm growing that library from my works. So what I wanted to do was to give you basically a large thumbnail idea of what Thoth calls the omniscient universe, the omniscient cosmology or universal perspective. And within it, we have the plasma cosmology, an electric universe, which is a theory which has been around for a while and is now being developed more fully by Wal Thornhill. I just discovered that, but I'm putting that in here because it does fit so perfectly with the omniscient cosmology that Thoth has given me. And when we look at the electric universe, we understand that the universe is frequency, 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 and charge and vibration. which figures in very prominently to how we understand how the 5G and all this fits into the picture, which I'll talk about a little later. So let's go first to some of my thoth speak, as I call it. And we're looking back as far as the 1970s and 1980s in what was given to me. So let's talk about first Metatronic and Orotronic. The Metatronic or Metatronic spiral refers to the full light presence spectrum of awareness, while Orotronic or Orotronic spiral is the half-light, incomplete light presence spectrum in which the Earth, for the most part, dwells within. One cannot simply switch from Orotronic to Metatronic in their awareness, but must unravel the Orotronic way of thinking before they can begin the Metatronic spiral of awakening. Certainly, many individuals have bursts of Metatronic awareness at times, but this is not actually accepting the Metatronic spiral or sacred geometry as your path. One must release the Orotronic modality completely before they can truly say, I exist in the Metatron, or full light spectrum. The Metatronic spiral functions somewhat like a wormhole within the whole cosmology dynamics of universes. The Orotronic spiral is created as a result of one universe. It is, in other words, a limited and incomplete spectrum adjusted to the holographic patterning of lesser sentient waveforms, meaning us, and those on our level of comprehension. It is up to us to manifest whole light engendered images in our lives. I want to say that again. It is up to us to manifest whole light engendered images in our lives. On Earth, our cerebral being is going through a metamorphosis, becoming the butterfly which ascends to light upon the branch of our brain stem. Here, the winged memory unites all centers of our thinking system into one, resurrecting the original, highly defined function of our cosmic ancestry. And so, when we understand the full light spectrum and the half-light spectrum, the half-light spectrum is not bad, evil, wrong, it's just not complete. And there's even a purpose for it, to allow us to develop, to receive the Metatron. That's a whole other aspect of the science I'm not going to go into here. But it is a viable system. The Orotronic is not evil or bad. It is a viable system. It's just that we're kind of, trapped in it right now. And that's not particularly good. So let's look at the term atoma, because this is going to figure in a little bit later on, but I'm going to put it in here right now. The atoma is a planetary central sun. Now we have an atoma within us, and Adam has an atoma. Everything of all components of material beingness have atomas. But right here we're addressing the planetary central sun. And this goes into the concept, and it's a very real thing for me, that there is an hollow in the living planets. There are hollows. But these hollows are not something that you can say, okay, I'm going into the inner earth, so I'm going to get my pick and axe and go down the caverns, and I'm just going to walk through, and I'm going to get to the inner earth. It's not like that, because the inner earth, and we're speaking here of this planet, but it addresses all such worlds, the inner earth is a slightly removed dimension, and it's a slightly removed dimension because of the spin, the torque, the fusion of the planet, the way it's operating in the system, the way it's moving through the universe as an electrical body, as a system within the solar system. All of this takes place to cause the inner earth, the hollows of the planets, to be slightly removed in dimension. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole dynamics of all of that, because that would take us way off topic, but I will just say that much. So, let's go to what we're calling the atoma, or planetary central sun. The atoma, or central sun of the Earth, is the heart of the planet. It contracts and expands in a pulsing action, sending energy waves through the space of the central cavity, and out through the many arteries of the Earth. Within the atoma, there are 4 polarity chambers. They are composed of atoms which contain inverted nuclei caused by the incomplete chain reaction of hydrogen changing into helium, or black hole effect, which takes place in the center of the atoma. For an analogy, picture a human heart inside a sphere. The heart is composed of hyperatoms, atoms with inverted nuclei. The rest of the sphere is composed of normal atoms. Within the heart of the four main chambers, the right and left auricles and the right and left ventricles, these are the four chambers of the heart atoma at the center of our planet. The heart of the atoma, the mechanics of the atoma as a functioning heart, is called the regula aspa, the regula aspa. The two chambers on the right side of the human heart are in harmony with the positively charged side of the regula apsa. The left side of the human heart is synchronized with the negatively charged side of the regula apsa. Okay, I read that because when we're dealing with understanding how we can change, how we can, Thoth uses the word neutralize, the systemic dysfunctions of the earth that have been created by these artificial intelligence operatives. When we understand how we can do that, we have to engage Gaia, Earth, the soul of Gaia, the planet of Gaia, and the soul of that planet. And we do that going into the center of the planetary central sun. We go to her atoma. It is our atoma in our bodies reaching out to her atoma. And without that connection, without that understanding, without that invitation of dialogue on the direct presence of heart-to-heart speak, we cannot defeat this situation. We cannot change it. We cannot neutralize it. I shouldn't really use the word defeat because it's more of an engagement and a neutralization. So let's go on to the next part of all of this. Before I draw all of these together, I have to go to these individual parts. We go to what Thoth calls World Systems 1 and World Systems 2. To help us with the idea of world systems, Thoth gave us a scale context to place it in. The Lemurians call a world system a na, that's Na, or a fluid progressive cell. There are 29 na in one atta, i.e. a knot or a binding unit. To put things into perspective, we are currently at na 1. The newer star will eventually take us through to the next atta, where it will then become something else, a register within the full light Metatronic spectrum. This would be called World System 2. So let me stop a minute and say, the newer star is what Thoth refers to as the ascended reality of this planet. And again, this is a whole science that I won't go into, but we'll just say that much. And we are currently in a World System 1. But when we move into another atta, the next knot or binding unit, we will move into World System 2, which is a full light Metatronic spectrum. To further clarify, World System 1, orotronic or half-light spectrum, entropic and trapped in a cycle of birth and death, with reincarnation the main dynamic, which is a soul cycling back into the system. World System 2, Metatronic or full light spectrum, non-entropic and open source directed. The soul integration of dynamic, say that again, the soul integration dynamic in World System 2 is manifestational flow from one light field to another in quantum propagation. This translates to, I think I will be a butterfly today. So now we're going to go on to archons in the arcana cloud. Now, I have on my page here, according to Wikipedia, an archon in the Gnosticism of late antiquity was any of several servants of the demiurge, the creator god that stood between the human race and a transcendent god that could be only reached through gnosis. And it goes on and on. I'm not going to read all of that. But according to the Thothakasha, archon is not a creator god. This term was used for such when certain beings, such as the Anunnaki, that there were others as well, the Anunnaki is not the whole picture, attempted to rule over humanity on Earth for periods of time. From the Thoth perspective, archon, in its most ancient understanding, is the miasmic cloud form of energy, not reconciled to divine source, separate from its creator. It is very dense, magnetic, and contracting, somewhat like a black hole, except it is not functional as a universal property. It only exists to attract and contain. So there's no continuation of its systems. All systems that are functional properties are linked to one another. This system does that and feeds it over to this system, and that system does that and feeds it over to here. The Archon just says, nope, I'm taking it all and I'm keeping it here, and you can't see it anymore. So from the, let's see, I read that, souls which are largely stagnant in their ability to recognize and integrate with the full light universal spectrum will be subsumed by the archonic cloud. All of us are influenced by this magnetic cloud. It is those who give themselves fully to contraction of spirit are the ones sucked into its cesspool. If the archonic influence on this planet were to be cast out, which it eventually must be, we would have only our own karmic reflexes to master. As long as the cloud hangs above us, every karmic reflex is attenuated by its gravity. So I'm not going to go too much more into the archons and the archonic cloud, but to say that from Thoth's perspective, human beings who we might call archons, or not even human beings, other beings as well, that we might call archons, are not. They are archonically invested, because this means that the soul that they are is redeemable. Maybe it's going to be really difficult to do that, but technically speaking, they are redeemable. Okay, so let's go to...
Okay, hold on. There's
Yes.
something happening with the signal. Michael, are you hearing it? Michael?
Yes, I'm hearing that.
Okay, I'm thinking it might be your headphones. Just check to make sure that the wire is in tight.
Yeah.
My
it
headphones?
is.
No, not yours. I'm talking to
Mine?
Maya. Yeah,
I'm not hearing it at all. See, I'm not hearing any problem.
that's why I'm thinking it might be you.
Uh-huh. Well, I'm not sure what to do because they are very securely anchored to the computer.
Okay.
Did it just start?
Yeah, but I'm not hearing it now, so let's just
Okay.
proceed, because I don't want to reset Skype, but I don't think it is Skype. I think it might be something right at your end. Let's just
okay.
see. Okay, sorry about that.
Well, I'm really getting down to the finish line here pretty soon, but
Okay.
we're going now to the Earth Regenesis Project, which I actually call TZO, Earth Regenesis Project. This is something that that Thoth gave me to give to others to help be able to work with this neutralizing thing. So when we understand, but first I want to say this before I get into the actual TZO on this. On the scale of universal law and dynamics, 5G can be neutralized, but only by understanding the science of universal law and how it applies to an electrical frequency-based universe. You have to go to the root of this platform and reset it to zero. Then all operative mechanics within that platform will be reprogrammed to balance, to respond in balance and harmony. And when you do that, 5G and all its minions and all its counterparts and everything like it is just going to be, it's not going to disappear. It's going to be transformed into either useful modalities, something that's harmless, or just completely, not active at all. So this is how we look at, or I look at, dealing with 5G. Now, that is not saying that I don't look at also doing sacred activism, what you guys are doing in 5G and all of this. This is very important. But it's like nothing works if you don't address the sacred aspect, if you don't address what is really universal law. Because, I think I missed this part that I wanted to say here. We think of things and beings as bad or evil, but it is all science. When we understand the science and how to actualize balance in all our systems, we will be able to neutralize these invasive dynamics. An example would be the Hawaiian practice of Ho'onoponopono, the version developed by Dr. Hugh Lin, which is what he calls the psychology of wholeness. The initial action must be to balance ourselves. Another form of developing this frequency in action is to be found in HeartMath. You can Google the HeartMath Institute. This is the technique of heart coherence. It is a measurable frequency which can be developed through certain biorhythm techniques. So that said, what this TESO Earth Regenesis project that I'm developing here with Thoth's help, it is based on bringing Gaia into the dialogue in a very direct heart-to-heart way. That means we need to have more heart resonance in our field so that we can connect to her supremely heart resonant dynamic. And when we do that, we allow her to be able to enter sort of a protective envelope on the surface so that she can help us neutralize these artificial reality projects in a way that, it goes directly to her heart center. See, at this point in time, we've created so much chaos on her surface, and I'm talking about frequency chaos. All of this stuff going on, chatter, this chaos going on, and harmful chaos to the biofield that is within her guardianship. That her sensors are overloaded on the surface. She's really withdrawing more and more to her heart and staying within the central earth. So this gives her a modality to be able to expand into that field more. This also addresses the Shungite field and how it is a cooperative unit in all of this Regenesis project dynamic. But central to it is what Thoth is calling the tezolectic field. And this is a subfield that has been created on the planet. It's part of the Pyramidus Radius matrix. I'm not going to talk about that. But a subfield on this planet that has been created by ultra beings and inner earth beings of highly spiritual resonance. And it is something that is sort of a membrane that's allowing the planet to readjust itself, to bypass these malformed electrical influences that are trying to subjugate us, and to allow us as electrical, spiritual, human forms to integrate with Gaia more fully and allow us together, Gaia and us, to be able to neutralize this systemic dysfunction of our planet. Now, this is not the only program in the world that's going to help to do that, but the tezolectic field in itself is there for any programs, all programs that are operative in that vibration, whether they recognize it as such or not. You don't have to know that fancy name. It's a science, and he's giving it that name. So I am very dedicated. While you two are working on the sacred activism, getting done what needs to be done on that end, I'm working on this end with the tezoelectric matrix, and I have people involved in that. And there's a way that all of you listening now, if you feel like would like to be involved in it, it's simple. It's not going to consume your life or anything. Very simple. So I'm going to ask Nancy that when she puts up the video of this, that she puts the link to my program, which I'll give you, Nancy, so that people, if you're interested, you can click on it, and read about it. So I think I have pretty well said what I wanted to say straight out. So I'm going to say, does anybody have anything that you'd like to add, the two of you, or any questions?
Well, I just want to say that I think that was a pretty remarkable overview of, what, of course, can seem to be an enormously complex reality, but it was just very engrossing and inspiring for me to listen to again. As you know, I'm familiar with a lot of this from our talks and within our spiritual community in Colorado. And yet I think, this dialogue with Gaia, with the Atoma, the heart of the soul consciousness of our planet, just resonates so strongly with me, and the way that you have laid the science of it out so specifically, incredibly, and credibly, not incredibly, though it's incredible as well, is a very rare thing I want to just point this out to our listeners that this is not your run-of-the-mill perspective on the reality on our planet. This is an integrated, holistic, high science-based perspective on universal reality as it translates into the energetics on our planet, affecting the geopolitics, affecting our personal evolution, and affecting whether or not those nasty towers being installed in our neighborhoods, which are causing havoc, whether or not we are able as sovereign beings to invoke the divine intelligence within us to work with the soul of Gaia to remedy the situation. Anyway, that's just my initial take, and I'd love to hear Nancy's thoughts.
If Nancy could unmute herself. Yeah, I'm sort of in the same thing that I had heard I'd heard Maia a few times talking about this, and the more you talk about it, the fewer words you need to put it together. And I thought it was a very good presentation. And the practicality, because we're always trying to engage people in doing something, and the practicality here is that she does have a program that you can participate in and begin to essentially experience these kind of metaphysical, philosophical, scientific in many ways, concepts in a practical way. So we'll put the contact point link so that you can get there, and it's a way of we all got excuses for not getting engaged, and I think part of our job here is to give you no excuses, to make it as easy as possible. You don't have to go out in the streets, although at this point in the game you may have to, but you can build a new reality with the ability to understand. You first have to come to a comprehension that there is a massive amount of power in your own little beingness. And if you focus that power, and we all focus that power on, in this case, one thing, stop 5G. I'm not for letting any of it happen. Get rid of 5G. There is absolutely no reason for it. It's not a communication system. It is not a communication system. It is not a communication system. I mean, think of it. You're going to spend anywhere between, I've heard $2 trillion to $20 trillion. I think the 20 might be worldwide, to replace the 4G system that right now, is anybody screaming and hollering that I don't have a download fast enough? I mean, sometimes it gets a little slow, but are any of us going to risk our lives, the whole natural foundation with the insects, the microorganisms, the trees? Are we going to risk all this for a little faster communications? Okay, so you want more faster communications, then go to fiber optics. It's not the same thing at all. It's a new technology. You want to build a new technology, build one that has no threat to it. But no, we're going to build this. No, we're not going to build that 5G. Absolutely not. There is no reason for it except control and weaponization of an electric system that now has us in a prison. Period. But what we're trying to do here is to explain that as awful as that 3D scenario is, it's a scenario that we don't have to buy into. And because it is an energy universe, if we don't buy into it, there's not enough energy to keep that story going. It's like you're reading a story and you get to a point and you go, I'm out of here. You put down the story. Does that story ever end? No, it stopped. Because you didn't pursue it. You go on to something else. Let's just stop it. Just put that story down. And that's what I think that Maia's talking about, is that to be able to fully grasp the concept of being able to do this, we have to be introduced to the concept that there is much more deeper science that goes into not just metaphysics but quantum physics. That's why in my world, we use the word enerology, the study of energy, that bridges all sorts of sciences. Because at the basis of even chemistry is a science. So, no, I thank you very much for that, Maia. And
you're welcome.
Yeah, and Maia, I'd like to ask you to go into a little bit of detail on the telelectic program, which you've brought forth, which has come from your Inner Planes mentor on this. Before I do ask you to do that, addressing sacred activism, which is a term that was more or less coined by Andrew Harvey, who is a noted scholar and mystic and a remarkable man. I've had the chance to meet Andrew a couple of times. And essentially, with sacred activism, which to me goes right to the heart of the code of chivalry, and to a higher Templar stream. And the code of chivalry, as it came out in medieval times, of course, is just one expression of the highest universal values of humanity. You'll find the same values in the Bushido code. You'll find it in the Kshatriya warrior caste of India, and many other times and places, of defending those who can't defend themselves, protecting the innocent, of upholding justice and sacred knowledge, of protecting and defending sacred knowledge. And the Templars are one manifestation of that stream. And for sacred activism, the key of it is, of course, to be active in the world, trying to uphold justice. You run into this bleak, discouraging, despair-inducing reality of what we see, going on in the world. And when you try to address how could anyone consciously and deliberately choose to inflict the suffering for their own gain that we see, and that the factions behind the puppeteers in terms of the military-industrial complex, the central banking entities, and others like that. How can it be possible that any soul would choose to do this? Well, it is conscious, deliberate evil. And it can be very disheartening to work in that field, to struggle, to whether your particular cause, whatever it might be, whether it's to stop sex trafficking, the abuse and torture of children, whether it's to help restore Gaia, to help restore the planet, to try to prevent this wholesale destruction of the biosphere that we see going on. It can be very disheartening. And what often happens is that activists burn out. You run out of empathy at a certain point. You just, because of the series of defeats that can be endured. And so if you don't have a divine connection, if you don't have a way of connecting to that eternally revitalizing source within you that is your soul essence, you're going to burn out. And you're going to not only become less effective, but eventually, it can be so damaging to your ability to function that you just give out. And so this is what Andrew Harvey has taught for a long time, and how to develop a balanced approach to this work. He asks all you contemplatives, you mystics, in your hermitages and your caves in the Himalayas, we need you to bring that divine knowledge that we are all in fact one, that it's all really just God's big show, and to see whether or not we figure out that there is no division, that in fact it is all divine unity in a phantasmagorical immense play going on, that bring that knowledge down here among us regular folks, and saying to the activists, you need to get in touch with that divine source within you. You need to have some kind of spiritual path that allows you to refresh your soul. And, particularly in what you're describing, Maya, you need to have, and we are being given, a way of working on a high level of activism where not only are we doing our 3D work on the ground, what legal tools do we have in hand on the municipal, town, county, state level to counteract the bought-off federal government and federal agencies like the FCC? How can we use these 3D tools? We've got to do that. That's a big part of the story. And as Maya points out, if we don't make the change at the heart of it all, if we don't address the consciousness dynamic, if we don't seize that lever, that supreme leverage that we have to change the reality on our planet, all our 3D efforts are going to go for naught. And so what you're bringing forward, Maya, in the tesiolectic, I'd like you to explain, if you would, TZO as actually the meaning of it as a number, and the simplicity of the program of what a simple spiritual act, conscious spiritual act of connecting to the soul of the planet, to our own atoma, our innermost heart of hearts, to the innermost heart chamber of the soul consciousness of the planet, which, it's validated scientifically in terms of what is called the Gaia theory, that the entire biosphere, in fact, has a unified consciousness. If you would just take a few minutes to share with us how ordinary folks, without having to commit themselves to some deep spiritual training and discipline, can use this program. And as you say, yes, there are other programs out there. This isn't the only approach. But within the tesiolectic field that actually covers the entire conscious sphere of the planet, how this can be worked with.
Yes. Well, first, because I'm calling this Teso Regenesis program, I want to read what Thoth has to say about a genesis field, because what we are doing is we are creating a regenesis of this field. So here's what he has to say about that. A genesis field is a dynamic, intelligent energy field responding to the impulse of creation. It is designed by universal intelligence to create specific ordered worlds. These worlds can be as small as the head of a pin or as large as giant planets. In this context, regenesis is the quickening of an original genesis field into a new stage of evolution. So I want to stress that when we work with this tesiolectic field, the field is here and has been installed to help us develop a sense of our own ability to create a new stage of evolution. Of course, that's ongoing. We don't need this to do it, but the teso field is allowing us to find the language, the light language in our being that helps us to clarify, to find a more direct transport of that energy into an intelligent communication between all high light engendered beingness. So that's understood, hopefully. I'm going to go on to read just a little bit about what this is about. And the kind of skipping through things here. TESO is an abbreviation for tesolectic. That's TZO, capital TZO, dash LETIC. It is a particular type of charge or signal that can be generated through the human heart chakra to connect to Gaia, to Gaia's heart or central sun atoma. TESO stands for, T equals 20, C equals 26, O equals 15, and this is it's the radial frequency of 20.26.25, which can also be written without the decimals. So around the planet, there are what Thoth is calling nadis, N-A-D-I-S, nodes. These are natural acunodes that are being enhanced and focused for specific energetic networking. Those who are guiding and operating this project, Thoth gives a name. I don't think they go around calling themselves this, but he gives names for things so we can kind of sort it out, you know. So the name he gives this is Nobilis Terra Nata, or NTN, a newly formed cooperative. The NTN is composed of both off-planet and inner-Earth kindred. They are assigned, I'm not going to read that. The NTN purpose is to work with the ongoing installation and operation of the Pyramidus Radius Matrix, which is a larger program, and I'm just not going to go there right now. So anyway, Okay, so here we are. It is important to understand that no otherworldly beings can save us. We must bend the branch, draw the water, rise up to the sun, and ultimately plant the field. Yet these shining ones and their helpmates are very much here to aid us when we take true light-engendered action on our own behalf. It is not just about transforming 5G. This system is holistic in nature and designed to help Gaia balance the entire Earth frequency realm. It would work on everything from chemtrails to GMO pollution within the cells and DNA. So I now return to the TESO protocol. In and of itself, it cannot destroy, block, or subvert the very real dangers of 5G. Yet I have been shown by my beloved mentor Thoth Hara that this protocol, in concert with all which is being created through the efforts of many within the Inner Light Network. All of us are part of the Inner Light Network. If we're giving light to the planet and we're on the same page about restoring it and we're living as conscious lives as we possibly can in the moment, we are a card-carrying member of the Inner Light Network, of the ILN. So many within the island on the planet now, and guided by the Nobilis Terra Nata, has great potential in subverting not only 5G, but all the dark works behind this initial action of Rakonic investiture. Now, Thoth is requesting at least 102 persons to participate in this. Really, we need more because he's thinking 102 people doing this every day. And when I say doing this, you'll see what I'm talking about in a minute, but it takes you 3 minutes. And if you want to do, a little more, you could extend it to 5 minutes, So it's not a lot of effort. But it's what is needing to be is the first time you get to this page and you look at all this, and I have links to all these definitions and whatever, you need to dedicate your time to reading it, and you don't have to memorize it. You don't have to even understand it all. What you're doing when you're reading this and reading all of it for one time is you are taking it into your subconscious. Now, if you were to be hypnotized a week later, a month later, a year later, 50 years later, you would be able to quote chapter and verse everything you had read on this page, or any page, because that's how the mind is. It's absolutely incredible. So when you take it into your subconscious being, you don't have to say, now let me see, I don't quite understand what that means. No, you don't have to. If you want to go into it deeper, you can, but you don't have to. You just need to dedicate some time to take it into your subconscious, because once it's in the subconscious, it's going to help you do your little 3 minutes, your little 5 minutes. If you just skip to the 3 minutes and 5 minutes, you may as well not do it. So if we can get 102 persons, 2 people doing it, 1 person doing it is good, but 102 persons that are doing it every day. So let's say we had 1,000 people, you don't always do it every day. Some things happen and you just can't get to it. So if 102 people were doing it every day out of the 1,000 or whatever, then you would have a real upgrade, a very serious upgrade in the frequency of all of this. Because one of the things that's going on here with the TESO, this project, is that there's another thing I didn't read to you about, but it's called the Pymander. That's the name that Thoth gave it, so I can call it something. The Pymander is a plasma-based, what he calls Elohim computer. It's not a computer like we understand it. Again, he's giving us something we can sort of tangibly understand as a word, but it computes. And it is a highly intelligent form that takes in information from this planet, from this world, in the highest vibration. In other words, all your light thoughts, not your, oh my gosh, I've got to clean out the kitchen sink again, not those thoughts, but the higher thoughts, the light engendered thoughts. It takes them all on the planet, it brings them in, and then it multiplies them. It increases them like the loaves and the fishes. And it does so not through some magic hocus pocus, but through the fact that we as living sentient energy machines, as well as sacred energy machines, are able to create perpetual motion of our highest and unfortunately lowest thoughts. So the pyramidus radius is just helping us do that in a more proficient manner and just focusing on the light engendered thoughts. So this is how it works. So if we have this 102 people that are doing it every day, that's like, I don't know the math on this, but I'm just going to throw something out there. Let's say it's 5,000. 102 would equal 5,000. This is just conjecture, but something of that frequency, because the Pymander is interacting with this Tizo field to allow you to allow this to happen in this way. So now, deep breath, we go to Shungite. While Shungite is an incredible defense against 4G, it cannot protect us from 5G. Not now. I am shown how the Shungite field around and in the Earth can update its intelligence, and therefore, in concert with certain other substances, thought and ultra technology can be useful against 5G. So the Tizo electric field is like working hand in glove with the Shungite field. And there's also an aspect of the Shungite field that is in the inner Earth, in other words, a slightly removed dimension, that is now shaking hands with the outer world Tizo field. And it's doing that more and more as we give Gaia an access through all the chaotic energy to the surface of her being. Let's see. I think I have covered most. I do have on this page a lot of different links. Like I said, just once, dedicate some time to go through it all. I also have 2 videos. One is just the basic understanding of the Tizo, kind of what we've just talked about, but a little bit more. And the second one is the most important because it takes you through sort of a dreamlike stage of seeing and feeling what the Tizo is about. And I've developed a second video as the beginning protocol to take you through it before you do your short version. You just need to do it, look at the video probably maybe 3 times. I think it's like 12 minutes long, And if you do it about 3 times in a few days worth, you've got it ingrained into your subconscious, and then you're really, really ready to do the short Tizo text, which is on the page, and I'll read it in just a moment. But to address the video that I made, it's made in the virtual world of Second Life. I've been a member of that world since 2008. I don't play games in there. I conduct spiritual groups. I do my activational videos incorporating the images, sounds, and vibration of this very etheric state of being that you can get into when you're in the virtual world. You can use that as a platform for etheric consciousness. So I created this video in there so you can see, you can feel, you can look and see the third dimensional reality of what I'm trying to express with all of this. So after you've done that, and like I said, it's just 12 minutes and you watch it 3 times. It doesn't have to be succinctly, but within a few days worth. Then you're really ready to start your actual protocol. And you can get it if you have a little altar, if you want to go outside under a tree, if you want to sit by your pussycat and stroke the little living being while you say it, whatever works for you. And if you can do it just once a day, you can do it 20 times a day, but if you can do it just once a day. So you touch the third finger of your right hand to your heart, and you don't have to have your eyes closed. I say that here, but really don't have to. You say aloud or silently, I am at the center of the Tizo-lectic field. I am projecting my higher energy frequency to all Nodus nodes on Earth. I am Gaia's channel to quicken and connect them to the Tizo grid. They are now activated, connected, and working in synergic harmony for the full restoration of the planet. All violations are hereby in this instant nullified. I summon the angelic powers to assist in the activation, and so it is. And I tell you, that is powerful. And once you've done 3 minutes a day of that for about a week, you can really feel it the minute you start. Now, I work with some crystals and a very special selenite sword that I hold right after I said this, and I sometimes have to brace myself because the sword is so powerful with light energy. In other words, you can incorporate other things. You can do it in different ways, but this is what you need to say. And I'm going to take out that while you close your eyes because you can't read it and you have to memorize it. I can't memorize it. I don't know about you. So I'll take that out. But anyway, like, for instance, I have two of the people that work in my, in the Hunting Servants of Light, which is a sister order to our Hunting Templars. Two of the ladies in that have been with me for a long time in my work, and so they've been with me in Second Life in the virtual world, since 2008. And so they are doing the Tizo. I created in Second Life these fields. I'm going to just end right here, Nancy. These fields of energy templates that we work with, and they go in there, and we all work together using that program in Second Life. So that's one way to do it. You can do all different kinds of environments to do this program. So, okay, that's what I had to say. Okay, Nancy, over and out.
Okay, it's time for our hour break. We are at a fascinating point, and so we'll be right back with you on Radio 5G.
And we are back.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to Radio 5G. This is Michael Henry Dunn with my co-host Nancy Hopkins and our very special guest, Reverend Maia Nartoomid. And thank you so much for that very clear sharing, Maia, of the Teziolectric protocol, which, again, for anyone just joining us, is a way of working with our own central heart to connect to the central heart of Gaia herself, the conscious, integrated soul of our planet, to help restore the planet, and also on a vibrational and frequency level to neutralize not only 5G but many of the other negative agendas that are playing out right now. And as you were sharing that with us, Maia, and reading that brief and beautiful affirmation that's at the heart of the Teziolectric protocol, you said to take the third finger of your right hand, place it upon your heart, and close your eyes, and to repeat that affirmation. Well, what I did, I closed my eyes as I was listening to you. I placed the third finger of my right hand on my heart, and I closed my eyes because I was able to repeat it, whispering with my microphone muted, as you said it. And it was very powerful, very tangible, to enter into that sovereign power of the soul to make this statement of truth. And so I just want to encourage everyone, it's a beautiful and simple practice that, as you say, Maya, can be integrated with whatever your own unique individual spiritual practice might be, your meditation, or whether it's your time in the garden, in the backyard, or being with your pet, your cat or dog, or whatever your pet may be, your armadillo, whatever. But that it's a beautiful and simple and very practical way of working on a fifth dimensional level while we're doing our 3D work on the ground, to invoke, as I like to say, the divine intelligence within us, so that organic intelligence on the surface of Gaia can integrate AI, integrate the artificial intelligence, which is being used as a tool of domination and control. We can step above that frequency and make AI our servant rather than our master, because we're not Luddites here, for those who may not know the term, as a movement back in the 1800s of let's just reverse all progress and go back to, making fire with flint and, taming oxen in the wild. And no, we want to, technology is a beautiful thing. We need to make it our servant in the restoration of this beautiful home of ours that we call Gaia. So,
Michael, may I interject just one other thing?
Of course.
Thoth is tapping me on the shoulder, so to speak, to not forget to mention the Gaia signature of the planetary genius. Could I speak about that for just a few minutes, or perhaps?
Oh yeah, please do. Okay. That's a beautiful thing.
Yes. Well, the term planetary genius was given to me, back in the 80s, I guess, or maybe even the 70s. It is the completed thought form containing the identity of consciousness for our world domain from its alpha through omega. It is untainted, free of illusion, and yet it is not omnipotent, as it defines and identifies. Therefore, it has a distinct polarity, and that polarity is to qualify and preserve the Yeshatan of Earth. Yeshatan is the last days, the process of changing form into the new state of being. In the book, the Book of the Zarathustran Lords, which is a lost book from the Akasha that I translated some chapters on, or some quotes on, the genius is the single most important vehicle in the completion of victory over evil. For an incarnated soul who has received her genius, and this is a capital G, is the one form of being who can utterly destroy the beast. And so, I've known about this planetary genius thing for a long time, and I also knew about the doctrine of signature, which is we all have a doctrine of signature that registers in our frequency field that says this is who we are, this is our energy field. Ultra beings and luminaries and angels, they connect to our doctrine of signature, and it's like it's our Facebook page. They know us, there it is. And so the Earth, they are the ensouled planet, this ensouled planet, as many planets, most planets are. Gaia has a doctrine of signature, but the doctrine of signature resides in her planetary genius. So the planetary genius of Earth has a doctrine of signature. And I've known this, but we go back to George Lawrence now, because I was looking through my old files and folders, papers that are yellowed, look like the Dead Sea Scrolls, because they've been around so long, like me, and ink, and it was attached to the letter. Now, I don't know why we didn't just go crazy over this when we first read this and saw this, but I didn't. I just thought, oh, that's interesting, and that was that. When I looked at it now, some 40 years later, I looked at it, and immediately I connected to the Thothic stream, and I received, this is the light signature, this is the planetary signature of the planetary genius, the Gaia signature of the planetary genius. It's not just a symbol or sign. It is a living light frequency.
Okay, can I interrupt you? I apologize, but I got dumped from Skype.
Uh-oh.
Okay, now what happened was I think maybe we lost a minute or so, but I need you to go back. They just signed me out. This is the second show this has happened to. So please go back to when you began to talk about the symbol itself, because that's what did not go across the airways.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Thank you.
So you mean before we got to the dream of George Lawrence?
Yeah, Lawrence. When you get introduced to the symbol.
Okay. Well, the symbol was in the old letters that George had sent to my mother and I. We were communicating back and forth, and in this letter, he had drawn the symbol in red ink as he saw it in his dream. He said he'd had this incredible dream, which when he woke up, he was shaking all over. He said he could never had anything like. He wasn't scared, but it was just the energy of it was so powerful. And in the dream, a Nubian goat had drawn on the floor of this place that he'd been taken to this symbol in red. So he drew it and sent it to us in the letter. And I know that George went into the inner earth. When I say went into the inner earth, I mean through either astral projection or through remote viewing in a dreamlike state, in some way or form, like I have done. Because I used to go a lot that way, both ways, into the inner earth. And on several occasions, they had me wash my hands in green liquid. Well, George didn't know this, but in his dream, when he went to this city, he had to wash his hands in green liquid before he could enter the room. So to me, and other things in the dream as well, tell me that he was going into the inner earth. So the Nubian goat in the dream drew the symbol in red ink or red paint on the floor of the temple. So he sent me the symbol that he had drawn with his own hands. And in that time, 40-something years ago, I was 23 or 24 when I was looking at this letter. I said, "Oh, this has got to be the inner earth," and blah blah blah. And I wrote him that, but it didn't even, nothing registered with the symbol. I guess it wasn't intended to. But these 40 years or whatever later, I'm going through these yellowed pieces of paper, some of them even water stained, and here I come across the symbol and what he said about it, and I'm going like, oh my God. I look at it, and the Thothic streaming hits me like a bolt of lightning and says to me in so many energetic words, "This is the doctrine of signature for the planetary genius." And this doesn't just mean a little symbol. This means it's a living symbol. It's an energetic form. So I knew what I had to do at that point, and that was integrated it into everything. Everything. I have the symbol all over inside my sacred lands in the virtual world. We're working to place it on stickers, that Nancy stickers. We're going to have the Gaia signature on the sticker, because Thoth said that when you place the Shungite and the planetary signature together, it's a match made in heaven, because the Shungite can transfer images and vibration back into the system that it's attached to. Like you put it on your computer or your smartphone, the sticker. It's going back into the system. It's going all the way back to source, wherever the signal is coming from. So you put the planetary genius on that, is taking that symbol back to that source, whether it's the 5G transporter or the 4G or whatever, it's taking it back into that. And if you put Mama's fingerprint into that system, never mind whether it's Shungite or toothpaste, you put that signal in there from Gaia. I'm not going to say it just magically takes care of it, but I'm going to tell you miracles can happen, will happen. Maybe not instantly, but they will happen. And the more of us that use the planetary signature combined with the Shungite on our devices, I'm telling you, I get chills all over when I just think about it. So that's on my program sheet, big and strong. Okay, that's what I wanted to share.
Well, I'd love to have Nancy. I'd love to be able to share about the Beware caps. Is it premature to share about that and how the signature is involved?
Actually, I really think that the 26-minute, I think it is, tape that I have ready to play is probably really a good time to play it, because where Maia has just presented the concept of, let's say, a higher storyline, a storyline that will match with many, many people. When I was talking to my friends on the Say What show a couple of weeks ago, we got into a conversation about 5G that takes it back into the 3D, Michael. And oddly enough, I end up talking about the baseball cap and the signature. So if you want, we can play that. I just think that, it's something that just meshes so well with what we've just covered.
Well, if it's 26 minutes, that's going to take us pretty close to the end of our show, and I'd love to be able to somehow weave in all this great stuff from Jamie Bates, if we can, to the conversation without, sacrificing a 26-minute chunk when we've got, not much more than half an hour left. Is there a way of doing that?
Honestly, no, but that's all right. I'll just use it someplace else. It's basically what we were talking about was the inability of the people who are in any way, shape, or form implementing the 5G to understand what they are doing. And her perspective on it, which she really succinctly talks about, is that they're not wired to understand it. She said there's no way that people who are open and able to accept reality and yet see another reality, those open people to everything, don't think like these other people. These other people don't have the capability of imagining the health consequences of what they're doing. So there's no way that we can essentially deal with that kind of a mentality because it's outside of what we understand as being rational. So she says, so don't force that. Don't put energy into that. Just create a new energy form, a new reality. And basically, yes, she says it it's the same things that we've been saying, but she says it in much, it's not much different, but it is different enough. And I've been working with the girl for over a year, and she is she has the ability to summarize things and give you a perspective on it, Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I actually had a chance to listen to some good segments of it this morning. You shared it with me. And yeah, I can see how it ties in very closely with what we're talking about. I noticed that Jamie uses also the term, a spectrum of awareness, that these beings, as she says, she compares it to, it's like a farm. You can't expect a horse to have the same kind of perspective that a chicken might. They're different modes of being and consciousness. And that our tendency to think in terms of right and wrong, good and evil, when we are trying to understand how a being can, as she described it, how do you be a CEO of some chemical company or Monsanto and deliberately poison the planet? You or I could just never do that. How can these beings do that? And she says, well, it's because you need to understand it's a different order of being, and that if somehow, their spectrum of awareness can be broadened or increased, that it's similar to what Maya is describing in terms of the science of it. Now, I have a glitch about this in one aspect, which is that there are human beings on the planet who, maybe they don't have the full spectrum to where it's just a different order of being, like a cow or a horse have a different order of being, and these folks just aren't able to comprehend what they're doing. But a lot of them are. A lot of them are able to understand that there is right and wrong, that they are choosing service to self over service to others, that they are deliberately, consciously choosing to have personal gain of a lifestyle and power and control at the cost of human suffering. They are choosing it consciously and deliberately. And some of them even know there's consequences. And they know that it's actually wrong, that it is about a mode of living, of service to self, that is in direct opposition to eternal truth of divine unity. It is buying into, the fool's game that I'm different and separate unto myself, therefore I'm going to serve my own selfish pleasure and ends, and it doesn't really matter to me if it's at the cost of suffering to others, because in the end it's all about me. Well, guess what? You are just divine consciousness in disguise, corked inside a bottle, inside an ocean of consciousness, and your little human consciousness is corked inside this bottle, and you think you're the game. Well, you're not. But, my problem with this is you get into this relativistic thing where you go, hey, these folks aren't really evil. They're not really choosing. They're just different orders of being. And, we need to not get into this right and wrong, good and evil thing. And I understand the larger perspective that Jamie is drawing our attention to. And it's important. We can't get into, I'm the righteous knight on the white horse riding in to defeat the evildoers. We need to be looking at our own reality, our own shadows, and to bring that into the light. And there is right and wrong. There is good and evil. And there are beings, maybe they're on the edge of the spectrum sitting on the fence. They know damn well what they're doing. Andrew Harvey described to me a conversation he had. He didn't describe it to me. I think it's in his book or a talk I attended. He was talking to an executive at a Monsanto kind of company and making the appeal that us, good folks as we think of ourselves, trying to save the planet, going, but you need to understand, of course, you don't really understand the damage you're doing, and he's a big agro executive, global agro executive. And he laughed at Andrew. He said, you people crack me up. You think I don't know? You think I don't deliberately choose what I'm doing? I like my lifestyle. I like attending, dinners with the president at the White House. And I know I've got, hitman squads in South America that are killing activists so that they don't interfere with our agenda. And I also know there's consequences. I know that, maybe at the end of my life they're getting it, but in the meantime, this is what I'm doing. This is the lifestyle I like. And you people crack me up the way you think. You can just talk to us, appeal to our conscience as if we have one. So I just want to throw that in because I hear Jamie's perspective and what Maia is describing to us, as a way of working with that. That's the way we've got to go. But anyway,
okay, let me just say that what you're talking about statistically is, or by definition, is a sociopath, psychopath, and they, by statistics, are only 3% of the population. Those people are the ones that are creating the chaos. The rest of us have to take out of the chaos and make order. And that's what we do, is we try to get order out of the chaos. So if you see those kind of people, those 3%, and you disregard them, you just say you're not even important anymore. And you go after the people that are like us, that they are not part of that 3%, that if they really understood the problem, they would go, oh my God, no, I'm not going to do that. And those are the people that we have to reach out and touch to get them aware. And once they become aware, done deal. The people that are the ones that are specifically implementing it for whatever reasons, and that includes your city council. They don't understand the full implications, and it's a big nut to crack. But, as Jamie and I got into, there are so many indications of the hand of God behind God being, a general term for spiritual guidance in any of its forms, but that there is some kind of guidance and the ability for, and we've talked about this, Mark Steele and I talked about this, that we're finding out things that under a lot of most circumstances you wouldn't, because they're secrets. And we're being guided as long as we don't worry about the details, that we keep our focus on creating a new reality, then all of the details sort of like just come into focus. And I use the baseball cap as an example of that. And I said, okay, so I get this download. We should use baseball caps so that everybody can see who's really anti-5G. Identify yourself. And that we'd have this really cool symbol because it's based on the B, and it's really that 5G is the specific problem we have to stop right now, but 4G is going to kill us anyway. But Shungai can work with the 4G. We can bring back the bees, but the critical thing is the collapse of the insect community, because everything else is, it's 75% gone. We got to deal with this right away. But first we got to stop the 5G. So I get this download, and then right after that I get introduced to I think I got the symbol even before that, but I knew that the Gaia signature symbol had to be integrated it into this logo. And, when you take the symbol by itself and you put it in the wings of this bee, because as a matter of fact, if you see the promo that's up on this show, look at the bee. It's got the symbol in it. Okay? And when you take this symbol and you duplicate it, and you got a mirror effect in it, what happens is the symbol itself creates a vortex of energy. And so people are drawn into it. I've watched it. It's really interesting to see it. So when we're going to do these hats, because again, I believe that if it's going to work or supposed to work, then it works with ease, as Jamie likes to say. Okay, and I trying to get these baseball caps, and I go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people before I go to Derek. Derek, I can't seem to get anybody to work with me. It was really peculiar. Not answering phones, making agreements, and it just really kind of, I'm going like, okay, this is not the way to go. So,
right, you mean on the manufacture. Yeah,
right.
Just the sheer manufacture of it, yeah.
Right, so, but that was leading us to a very simple reason that all was happening, was that we could buy the machine to do it ourselves, and it wouldn't cost us anywhere near what it was going to cost. Plus the fact that we have the flexibility. If somebody's out there and they've got a group of people that are 5G, okay, so you get the 5G with the B thingy on it, and then you get another stitching on the hat identifying your organization. And we can do that for, one person. Never mind, thousands if that's what's needed. But we couldn't do that any other way, because you're going to change you're going to add, and every time you add, they would charge you $50 for the layout. But this way, we've got control over it. And, but that's how, it's like when things are going to go, they go very smoothly with ease. So we'll be getting these out. We're waiting on. The only thing holding us back at this point is the machine itself. It's got to be specifically, it's adjusted to work with what we want it to.
Yeah, I love the story of that, Nancy, how it came about that you ended up, that Cosmic Reality ended up deciding to, acquire the machinery yourselves. And I just want to tell people I'm really looking forward to when these caps are available. They're really cool. It's got a Radio 5G logo, right, which is the microphone that looks like a bee. And in the wings of that bee, it's subtle, but it's there on either side. As you say, it's the inverted on one side. The signature of Gaia herself, what we've just been describing that Maia shared with us, that beautiful, simple symbol, which I've already, placed on an S4 Shungite sticker, because I got a smart meter 100 feet from our house here. And, there is that quantum field of Shungite now working with this powerful, energetic, informational symbol that carries the vibration of the ensouled planet that we call Gaia, our Earth Mother. And I'm really looking forward to getting these caps out there. It's a beautiful deep green color, and it's going to be a very high quality fabric. These aren't these cheap throwaway type caps. And it's beware 5G. Where the bee goes, so go we all. And
well, the other thing that's going out with them is 25 business cards that actually tell people why they should be aware of 5G. And so everybody that gets a cap gets 25 of these. You put them in your pocket. When somebody says, gee, that's an interesting cap, what it's about, you don't have to talk to them, just hand it to them.
Right, exactly. And our friends down in Taos, New Mexico, who are working to stop 5G there, they have a beautiful card of their own like that just gives hard information, bullet-pointed information from credible sources about the lethal effects of 5G and why it needs to be stopped. And it's just a great combination. This very cool cap that people will look at and say, where the bee goes, go we all. 5G, what's that about? You hand them the thing, and off you go. You're spreading the story, and as you point out a lot, I love this, Nancy, about how it's all about the story in the end. And what Maia said to us, that the message from our friends on higher levels is that we must take light engendered action on our own behalf so that they can help us. And this is about spreading that field of awareness. And the Shungite field, of course, is another beautiful way of doing this. We're real careful, and I know Nancy's very careful about making it really clear to folks that as things stand, Shungite is a wonderful protection against 4G, EMF, harmful Wi-Fi. As things now stand, it does not protect you against 5G. But, in terms of the emerging field of consciousness, the way the Shungite field can interact with other elements and other beingness on the planet, that the Shungite field not only can, but already is evolving to help us defeat 5G and rise above it. That's a very cool story. So let's see, Maia, do you have any thoughts on what's where our conversation is going right now?
Well, I must say I've really enjoyed this, the three of us getting together this way and sharing our thoughts, feelings, and understanding with everyone else. I guess the only thing I might want to inject at this point, well, just a few things, is when you go to the TESO page that you'll have the link to, there are other chapters, and all of these are fairly short. As I'm saying, it's just a one-time read going through it, but I continue to put chapters on here, so you might want to keep that page link and keep looking for more chapters, because I have the TESO Stonehenge Saturn dynamic, the TESO matrix and the seven thunders, the planetary mantles, and then the planetary genius, the light symbol. There's other things, on this page that will help people go further, deeper with the whole understanding. And the more we become aware of these things, and I realize, I have my own language here. This is a Thoth language. Some of it are words, ancient words from Lemuria, Atlantis, whatever, and others he just makes up, I guess, because they suit what he's trying to explain to me, So it's Thoth speak, and it's one way of looking at it, but look at what's behind the words, which is the universal dynamic that is not just particular to my story, and I just feel that by entering any of these dynamics and understanding more deeply through any of the sources that are talking about it, the universal dynamic that's involved, we get out of the little picture and we get into an overview. And once we can do that, Thoth recently said this when I was doing a session for someone, that they were lying in a stream, and the stream was clear, and it was running, the water was running by them, but it was covering all their chakras, and it was immersing them in all this energy. And even the good energy was getting too much for them because they couldn't sort out everything that was coming through them. He said, energetically, just visualize one standing up out of the stream, but not getting out of the stream, just standing up. Your feet are still in the water, up to your ankles, you're in the water, you're still connecting to the earth, you're still connecting to the signals that are running through you in the stream, but your higher chakras, most of your chakras, are out of the water, out of that penetrating stream of information, of energy, of thoughts, of impressions, even the good ones. And you can then say, okay, what do I choose to bring up from the lower part of my ankles out of the stream into my chakras in a manner, in a timely manner, in which I can integrate it more efficiently and with less, overload. Because actually, right now on the planet, the gates are opening. All the good stuff is flowing out to us, too. All these powerful energies. But we're just not, we've been sort of sitting in our little boxes. And some people call it ascension symptoms and whatever, but it's just overload, and that can be easily handled if one just visualizes and accepts that they can literally lift the rest of the higher part of their body out of the stream and allow the signals to infiltrate through the lower base energies into the body at a timely way. And if you just do that visualization of standing up in the stream, it's going to help one integrate these really important nutrients that we need. But it's like, if you've been starving for years, you can't just sit down to a full course dinner, it'll kill you. So you have to integrate it. And so that's one of the things that I wanted to share, because I just think it's really important for us right now.
Yes, thanks for that, Maya. That is, the whole question of, balance and integrating everything that's going on is, can be a very challenging thing for all of us as we're, trying to get through the day, and we've all got our challenges with, family and business and job and children. And when I think about what Nancy brought into our conversation here from her conversation with Jamie Bates about understanding this spectrum, and as you pointed out, Nancy, that, okay, those people that I was referring to who are sociopathic, deliberately choosing a mode of dominance, inflicting suffering on others for their own benefit, that's 3% of the population. We know from studies that sociopathic template, you might call it, is that having a personality profile like that positions you to be really successful on Wall Street. There's studies about the upper level of CEOs and executives at the central bank level, at the Wall Street level, where to be totally concerned with your own profit, regardless of the expense or suffering to others, that works pretty well with the Wall Street model. But as you say, it's the rest of us that's where the game is. That's where, like the city councilor, the county commissioners in your local area, who are not, maybe these are good folks. They're not sociopaths. They don't want to see their neighbors suffer. They may be getting a perk or two or a political contribution or two from, elite corrupt factions in order to control them. But when push comes to shove, they've got kids too. They've got families too. They, don't want to see the biosphere collapse around them any more than we do. And that's where the story, needs to be told. So, as I look at what we're doing here with Radio 5G, and by the way, our website is 5G-know.com, 5G-know.com, to keep you up to date on everything that's happening in the growing movement to stop the rollout. That a lot of it is about sharing hope and inspiration with people, along with the hard information. Because, it's bleak, it's scary, and we can take light engendered action on our own behalf. And it's making the difference, both on the 3D level and the 5D level. And Nancy, I just want to address for a moment, when we're talking about right and wrong, good and evil, and addressing the reality of it, while
yeah, we're looking at the big picture, the relativistic, these are just beings who don't, are not quite on the spectrum of awareness. Yes, and there's people out there listening to this show right now who might be law enforcement officers, they might be military, they might be in the intelligence community, and who are actually good men and women who are trying to serve their country or their community. And there might be people out there who are engaged in a task force to address the elite pedophilia rings, child trafficking, the torture and abuse of children. And for them to know that as we use these high-level spiritual dynamics, there is also the on-the-ground upholding of the rule of law, upholding of justice, and saying, you will not harm this child. You will not harm Gaia. There is a higher law, and it's their particular dharma, their particular role or job in this life as a law enforcement officer or as a soldier or as some of the good factions in the intelligence community that are working to bring down these networks. I mean, this is a very important aspect of it. And it's finding that balance where we're not, just getting so relativistic and so high in our perspective that we're not supporting, the upholding of the rule of law. And I bring this in partly because, as you know, Nancy and Maya also, I did a lot of work for a lot of years in helping to launch, if we could, a meaningful International Court of Human Rights that would be enforceable, that would actually bring these elite corrupt factions to justice and to end the impunity with which they've been operating and inflicting so much suffering. So that's just sort of a call out from me on that level. And I know, Nancy, with your own, military and intelligence background, and with you following the story of the 70,000 sealed indictments that are supposed to exist, and that hopefully part of the whole rolling wave of justice and of light that we believe is unfolding on the planet. The inner light network is a reality. There are infiltrated agents of light at these high levels as well. Anyway, I just wanted to call out that reality. If Nancy, you have any comments on it, we got to somehow find that balance within the story.
Well, now, see, I think we're running out of time. I'd like to say, yeah, we've got couple. I don't think we have a couple of years. I think we have to do it right now. So if I don't have enough time to, really build a legal, let's say an alternative legal system to take care of this, then we've got to do it in a way that completely breaks all the rules. Enough is enough. And that's going to take people standing up and saying no. If they don't have enough people saying yes, they're not going to be able to do anything. And that is from the 3D aspect to the situation of metaphysics. And, it's like we don't really have to reach out to anybody. Nobody has to hear our words because we're already in their heads. There is a collective consciousness that unifies all of humanity. And every time we have a conversation like this, we are dialogue in that consciousness. And the more we dialogue, the more we talk, the more powerful becomes that conversation in people's heads. We don't have the time. It's been taken off of the game table. We don't have any time. We're running out of time. The hourglass is getting smaller and smaller. So what do we have to do? Now we have to step up our game and we have to go into a metaphysical state. where we're working directly with the concept of energy levels, and one of those being the collective consciousness, which really is part and parcel of the subconscious of every individual. So to do that, we have to do it by just standing up. That's why I think the concept of the baseball caps, of adopting the logo in different places that say, look at, be aware of 5G, B-E, not B-E-W, B-E-E-W. We need to be aware of the full consequences of all of this. And that's the sixth extinction event, the destruction of the insect world. And I can't tell you enough times that that is where the battle is ultimately going to be fought. Okay? So, in my opinion, we have to step up the game and do it by every single person out there. You know, okay, so they think you're crazy. They don't want to talk to you because all you want to talk about is 5G. Every time you say it to somebody, every time you think it, you are influencing the collective consciousness. So please, be annoying and talk about the dangers of 5G. You obviously are listening to us. You obviously know what they are.
Yeah, that's it. You know, that I am so grateful for the reality of what you're describing, you know, that this conversation among the three of us right now, you know, it's going out to listeners to Radio 5G. It's going out to the Cosmic Reality radio network. Through that, it'll touch the Shungite field, the growing field of consciousness, and the movement to spread the Shungite field around the planet. Through Maya's community, it will go out as well through the Sacred Academy of Geoenergetics, which is, you know, with Cosmic Reality is the joint project that is Radio 5G. It'll go out to our whole community. And those ripples of this conversation, this story, and the people that we can already see, you know, around the country and around the planet are saying no, are gathering up all the tools that is our sovereign right to use as citizens of this planet, as children of Gaia, to preserve and protect and restore, and to say no, this will not be allowed. That every single one of those little ripples, as you say, you know, it's the collective consciousness of humanity is being influenced as we speak. And you know, we always try to bring it back to sharing hope, sharing inspiration as we share hard information. It's not just, you know, hope in the sense of wishful thinking. You know, true hope is hope that is intensified, energetically directed, sovereign assertion of will based on plans grounded in reality. You have hope because you are trusting your God-given willpower that is being asserted in the name of justice and truth. And that's what the hope that we want to share with all of you is based on. This isn't just, oh, you just pray this magic little formula and, you know, sit in your room and, you know, pet your cat and 5G will just go away. No, this is solid hope. And so I just feel grateful to be able to be a part of this community, you know, through Nancy Hopkins and her generous sharing with us of the radio platform that is Cosmic Reality that enabled us to launch Radio 5G, and, you know, to our community in the Sacred Academy of Geoenergetics in Colorado. This is a growing movement, and as we see, you know, all over America and the globe, these groups and movements asserting their sovereign power. I've just shared with Nancy the link to the article from the Environmental Health Trust entitled USA City Ordinances to Limit and Control Wireless Facilities. It shares specific documents based on, you know, all of the different modes that we can use to counteract this on the legal level. And, and what this does, I mean, this is kind of what Jamie Bates was bringing out. When we put this out there, we put the information out there and these tools out there, that these folks who are in the dark spectrum, are not in the spectrum of awareness, it's going to expose that fact. It's going to make it obvious and unignorable. 5G is lethal. It is already killing people, and it is unconscionable, and it is against the law. And as this is brought out, they have nowhere to hide. Their limited consciousness is going to be forced to expand. So anyway, this is solid reason for hope on that. Nancy, is there anything else you wanted to add from your conversation with Jamie Bates on this?
Well, I want to say something else here about, it's a very interesting path to be able to see definitive changes in the 3D environment regarding 5G that, like I've said, I anticipated it would take 6 months to get there, not 6 weeks. Okay, the speed, the acceleration of the awareness is really very stunning. And I know that some of you out there don't know what the heck we're talking about when we mention shungite. But shungite is a specific form of energy that works with human energy to essentially accelerate human energy and intensify it. And we have a whole science, as we've been up for 5 years, it's real. It's a real thing. And so you have layers of shungite that work with the layers of water, that work with the layers of trees. And all of this came about because I made a promise to Gaia. Okay? I said, I will be subservient to your needs because I knew that we were on the brink of biosphere collapse. And I said, just tell me what it is. What's my mission? And within, a month of that, I was completely engrossed in shungite because my mission was to get shungite to the masses. And when I was given that mission, I didn't really understand the full implications of it. But what I'm getting to is that not only did we get this machine to be able to do our own embroidering, therefore become able to put symbols out there for people to just get, a symbol will download a whole thesis in your head and you don't even realize it, but now you've got it. To put these symbols out there, and this is one of many that all of a sudden different people have been seeing all these symbols out there. So it's another way of doing that. But Derek is trying to figure out how to make thread that will hold the shungite, or some other way of making these caps shungite caps.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah, so we're going, it's the marrying up of so many crazy stories that in and of themselves are now converging into one big story. You know what I'm saying? It's fun, a lot of fun.
Well, I love the idea of a Beware 5G cap that actually has shungite woven into it and the Gaia signature. I mean, Maya, I can imagine you're already thinking about, the magical potential miracle power, we'll call it, of that combination, right?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm seeing those caps with. Aside from the great B caps, I'm seeing them with just the signature on it, for us to have made through Nancy, with the guy's signature on it, and T-shirts. Oh, we're going to have T-shirts because the symbol is so beautiful that it's artistic, and it can be, done especially in a nice way on a T-shirt, right over the heart chakra. It's heart to heart, Gaia heart to human heart, So I'm getting all kinds of ideas,
Right. Well, that heart-to-heart communication, that is what the essence of it all is. And we're coming up on the end of our program here now. And I just really want to thank you so much, Maya, for joining us today. This has been such a rich, deep conversation.
I have so enjoyed it. Thank you, Michael. And Nancy, I'm putting into the Skype chat, I'm putting the link to my teaser protocol page, the Regenesis program, so you can put it with the video. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So, the light is winning and will win. And thank you all for tuning into Radio 5G, our website, 5G-know.com, 5G-no.com. And this is Michael Henry Dunn with my co-host Nancy L. Hopkins signing off for today. Thank you all so much. God bless. See you next time.